Hi everyone, welcome to today's session on AWS Cloud Path. My name is Elizabeth and I will be walking us through how to set up secure access to our AWS environment without exposing it to the public and also without setting up some other complicated networking configurations that would be in the normal site-to-site VPN. So yes, we are here and we'll be trying out this workshop. I haven't used this workshop before, so I hope it actually focuses on setting up the AWS client VPN. If it doesn't, then I would set it up without the workshop and just show that to you. I prefer going through the workshops because I can easily share the link and you try it out yourself with the detailed instructions. But if I am not using the workshop, then you may not be able to follow exactly with the video. So yes, today we'll be trying this out. And before I proceed, I just want to share also that in the AWS networking configuration, there are two main types of VPN connections that you can set up. I mentioned it just now. There's a site-to-site VPN. We tried it before in one of the previous sessions where we were imitating an on-premise network site on the AWS environment, and we set it up. You have to have the customer gateway side of it that you want to connect to the AWS environment. But with the client VPN, you are not trying to connect your local on-premise data center or network to the AWS environment. You are trying to establish this secure connection that anybody can log into from anywhere. When I say anybody from anywhere, I don't mean anybody from anywhere. It is what you configure, but just saying that you don't have to be in a particular local area network in your on-premise data center or something to be able to connect to your AWS environment. So a lot of times you would see that aside from the site-to-site VPN that is established with the tunnels, a lot of organizations choose to also have this AWS client VPN as an add-on to it for temporary access to people that are not in the location, like the office location, so that they can also still access the AWS environment securely and all. So just saying, you might wonder why we have two different VPNs, but this is one of the differences. There's the cost that comes with it. You may want to check that out before you launch anything in AWS environment, but it is what it is. So let's go. The AWS client VPN. I'm just going to increase this so that we can all work with this together. So there are 3 labs here on the left side that you can see. We have one lab that is about connecting to an internal web application using AWS Verified Access. Then we also have connecting to an Amazon EC2 instance using the Instance Connect endpoint. Then there's connect to VPC resources using AWS Client VPN with mutual authentication. These are all different focuses, but we want to focus on the one that is AWS Client VPN. All these options are about setting up secure access to your VPC environment, but we're going to be going with the third lab, the lab 3, that is on AWS Client VPN. The other 2 labs, you can check them out if you want, but they're also granting secure connection such that for instance, the Instance Connect endpoint is one of the ways to log into your EC2 instance. Normally, you deploy a server and then you want to get into the server to run some commands or start the application or do something. You would want to open the SSH port and log in to do that, or you like use some jump host or something to get access to that one. But with Instance Connect endpoint, you log in the AWS environment and you're able to work on the server without exposing your ports or doing all of that stuff. So yeah, I think these are just different areas. I'm going to the third lab, AWS Client VPN, that we're going to be working on. And I hope that we do not have any prerequisites that we need to set up. Let's just scroll through this quickly. There is the AWS Verified Access, that's the first lab. There's a EC2 instance for the connection to the server. We have the client VPN. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure there are no dependencies. I'll check it now, and yeah, okay. So let's just go. Instead of getting started, we're using our AWS account, and this is for the second lab, lab 2. I'm just going to scroll down to see if we have any particular thing for lab 3. This is for the lab 1. And yes, there's nothing for the lab 3, so we're good to go. So we're getting started with the third lab. Connect to VPC resources using AWS Client VPN with mutual authentication. And here is just an explanation on the AWS Client VPN. I'll read it out loud. So it's a fully managed remote access VPN solution, and it is used by your remote workforce in your company, wherever, to access resources in your AWS environment and also in your on-premise network, depending on how you set it up. And it's fully elastic. It automatically scales up or down based on demand. And when you migrate your applications to AWS, your users can use it the same way throughout. And I would say that in my work, like when I'm working on some migration projects and all that, the AWS Client VPN usually comes to play a lot, because as a consultant, you may not have access to your clients, like office network or something, but you still need secure access. AWS Client VPN works fine because you don't need to be in the network for you to have secure access with AWS Client VPN. And yeah, I think those are the main things. So this is the arrangement of all the things that you need to do to get your AWS Client VPN working. First thing being that you have the subnets in your VPC, your AWS VPC, the subnets that you associate with the client VPN endpoints. And what usually happens is that there are elastic network interfaces that are like deployed in this subnets, so that you can like be able to communicate like locally without exposing these subnets or VPC to the public internet. So you associate subnets to the client VPN endpoint, and that's where the elastic network interfaces are going to be deployed. And the elastic network interfaces, I would say anytime you say elastic network interface, is like talking about having a network card put somewhere, and you can use it. You can communicate to and from that network interface like a system or something. Next is allowing end user access to resources by adding authorization rules. That will come. That's your authorization and the restrictions that you want in terms of access. Sometimes people configure their what they call this thing, SSO login with the client VPN, and require multi-factor authentication and all of that. Depends on what you are going to be restricting in your authorization. Then there's the stage where you connect to other networks by adding rules and routes. So you can extend your VPC network, basically. That's what you're saying. Like, okay, people can use AWS Client VPN to connect securely to your AWS environment and your local on-premise environment, like when you allow the routing or the connection between them. You download and install the free VPN client. that is a requirement to use it. I had it installed. I don't think it's on this user. We may have to install it together, but there is a a desktop application that you would install on your system, AWS Client VPN, that's what it's called. And when you launch it, you would have to put in the configuration like login and all that, and you'll be able to establish the VPN connection. So you download and install the free VPN client on user devices, and users will enter their login credentials to connect to your network over the client VPN. That's how it works. So what happens is when you log into this VPN, you establish the VPN connection, then there are some maybe URLs, domains, or CLI commands or some things that you run or try to open on your system that wouldn't have worked before because you don't have access to that network. When you establish the VPN connection, you are now able to launch these things or run them or like resolve these domain names because you are connecting to the resources that are restricted like in this environment. For instance, you may have some private hosted zones in your Route 53 that would not be resolved externally, but if you've configured it somehow, you're able to now like run these things and they work because you are in the VPN network. VPN network. Yeah, that's tautology. But yeah, I think you get the gist of it. So we can proceed. So, okay. Here there's a lot of list on AWS client VPN use cases. I already said a lot of them. And you can check them out. It's like very specific areas that it can apply to you. So in this lab, we'll be creating a AWS client VPN to provide access to our database. I don't have a database in my account. I don't know, maybe they will create one for us. But yes, we would be creating access to the database via AWS client VPN. And these are the steps we'll be going through. We create the certificate and we'll upload it to ACM, that's the AWS certificate manager. Would create our VPN endpoint, the client VPN endpoint, would associate the target network, will add an authorization rule for the VPC, and download the customized VPN endpoint file and connect to AWS client VPN. Sounds like a very straightforward approach. Let's go. Go. This is the architecture that we're going to be following. Remember, it was one elaborate lab 1, lab 2, lab 3 kind of setup, but we're only focusing on lab 3. So all the parts that is grayed out here have to do with the other labs that we're not going to be deploying at all. What we have is our AWS region. We have our VPC. This is the CIDR block for our VPC, the range of IP addresses we're deploying in this VPC. Then we have 4 subnets. 2 of them are for the database that we talked about just now, 2 RDS databases. And then we have 2 other subnets that we're going to associate with our client VPN. I would say, yes, okay, yeah. They are in 2 different availability zones, of course, 2 different subnets. And we have the client VPN ENIs here. That's the Elastic Network interfaces that I was talking about. So with these Elastic Network interfaces like deployed in these subnets, we are able to access the resources that are in the subnets or in whichever routes, tables that are connected that you allow it to access. And we're also configuring some things here. You can see the AWS Secrets Manager and the Certificate Manager that we talked about just now. And I think that sums up everything we would be working on. And we are the remote user here. Nice. So let's go. First step, creating the RSA certificate. So this is going to be done on our system. The client VPN supports OpenVPN. And wait, let me open my account. Just console.aws. Just log in for the sake of I always forget I need to do this. Ein Moment, bitte. I'm just gonna scan this. To sign in. Oh. I always run into this issue. I don't know why I don't sign in before I come here. Just a moment, I'm going to sort this out and come right back. So it took me a while to get back into my account because I had changed the MFA device. I forgot about that. So yes, back to the task that we were working on, creating the RSA certificate. We're going to do this and then we're going to store it in ACM. So first things first, we're going to do that locally. Where's my terminal? Terminal. It's so tiny. I think now you can see what I'm doing. So yes, I'm going to copy the instruction here that tells us to clone this repo into the system. I mean, you could do this without going through this particular path, but this is an OpenVPN repo that makes it easier to create RSA. If you have other options, go with it. But I don't think. I mean, let's just. So yes, we're going to navigate into this folder, and we're going to run the init PKI. This is just routine task. It doesn't really do anything particular for your AWS setup. It's just needed to generate the RSA. So we're gonna run this. It's going to ask us to do some things. For the common name, we're going to use this common name here, AWS client VPN workshop.com. Doesn't have to be that, but I mean, it shouldn't be that in a normal connection setup that you're working on. But this is for AWS Client VPN Workshop, so we're using this. And the build CA task was completed successfully. So now we can generate the server certificate and the key. Certificate created. Every time you need to generate certificate, even in AWS environment, when you need to generate certificates, you from your own private certificate, you need to firstly build or at least create your private CA, your certificate authority, and then you can now generate the certificate. It's kind of like the same steps here. So we can continue. Go to ACM. That's the. You can just type ACM, or you can type certificate manager. Yeah. So here we are. Normally, some steps that we do in these workshops are for due diligence and all that, but whenever you encounter any issues, you can check whether you skipped any of the steps so far, like uploading a certificate or generating it the right way or something. But yeah, so we're going to import the certificates, and let's get back here. So let's import the certificates. We need to put in the certificate body, the private key, and certificate chain, and we have to get that from our local system because that's where we installed it. Yeah. So here you open the file and you copy the contents, begin certificate, end certificate, that's certificate body. Then we'll open the other file where the key is. We'll copy the private key, and then we can upload the certificates chain also. So we'll go step by step. Let me see what's here. This is PKI issued. We have com.cert. That is, let me just go back a little so we see everything. PKI issued. We should have also PKI for the private, and then we should have PKI for the ca.cert. Yes, so we have all of them here. First one would be for us to open this file. I'm just going to use Nano to open it. Where am I? Let me see. I'll just go all the way back. And back one more. Yeah, I mean, I could have just done it. So clear all of this. We have a clean slate to work. So I'm going to use Nano to open it. What is this? I think it's definitely not going to work better. Okay, I'll just open it then. We can go to home. Is it RSA? This is the folder we're in, and I'm going to, which one was it? Is it RSA 3? Yeah, then there was PKI. We have the issued. This is where, yeah, so let me open this one. I'm not doing this. I want to open it with text editor. So this is the certificate that we're going to copy. I don't know if you can see it. So we're going to copy only this part where the begin certificate and end certificate is. And then we are going to put it in the certificate body. Remember, the first file I opened is the one that is com.cert. This one, where's it? It was open just now. Come in. Yeah, this one that is in the issued. Then for the private key, I'm going to go to private, and I'm going to copy the key. This is open with other. Private key. So where is right begin private key to end private key is what I'm going to copy. Yeah, and what else? Of course, okay, we still need the ca.search from PKI. Yeah, this one. I need to open it with text edits. Okay. So I copy this also, and I put it for the certificates chain. And that's all that I need for this. I'm going to close this once. I'm going to close them all. Yeah. And we can import the certificate. Yeah, that worked fine. So we have one certificate now. You can see it's RSA 2048, and we are good to go. Remember when we were asking the common name that time that we put AWS Client VPN Workshop.com, and I said in your normal task you wouldn't want to use that. You want to use the domain that you want to work with, and it's definitely not going to be AWS Client VPN Workshop.com. Just so you take note of that. So we have one certificate here, and we're good to go. All good. That's all. Yeah. So you may need to go back and check all the other ones that we need to impute. It's only if you created multiple certificates for different clients you may want to do it like this, like different users or something, and you want to import their certificates like this. But we didn't create multiple users. We only have one certificate that we created, and that's fine. But if you want to do more, you can and add more. These are just extra steps depending on what you want to do. So I'll continue like this, and we won't be adding more certificates. That will be all. Next, now we can create our client VPN endpoint. These are the instructions, the settings that we'll be using for our configuration. The name tag client VPN, description client VPN. This is the CIDR block that we're using, and everything else goes from there. So from AWS, we search for VPC. It's in the VPC service that you are able to configure the AWS client VPN. So when you log on to your VPC dashboard, you scroll down in the left navigation bar. You scroll down where you see this virtual private network. Client VPN is part of it. So that's all we have. Client VPN. And then we can create our client VPN. We'll still have to refer to this place a lot for the configurations that we have to take from here. But I would just proceed now to split our tab in. Sorry, I want to split it so that we can follow simultaneously without having to go back and forth, back and forth. And this is what we are working on here. Yeah. So we are here at our client VPN. You create your client VPN endpoint, and then you fill in the details. Name tag optional, description optional, but you want to be able to identify what you are setting up, especially if you are setting more than one client VPNs over time. You want to be able to differentiate them. That's what it's for. So client VPN, we just name it that. This will also be client VPN. And the CIDR block, we are using this one provided in the workshop. This is the IP address range from which your client's IP addresses would be. I think that sums it up. I don't know which other way to explain it, but when you are creating your VPC and you say, okay, this is the CIDR block for my VPC, you also have to specify the CIDR block for your client addresses. And then the server certificate ARN should be the one that we have uploaded into ACM before. So from the drop down, you'll be able to see what you have uploaded into the certificate manager. That's why you have to do that step in advance. You have to do that step before you come here. If not, you won't be able to find the certificate that you want to use here. So we can continue. Authentication options. We are using mutual authentication. I didn't create a client certificate ARN. That's why they created the second user at that point. But you can also use user-based authentication. Depends on what you have set up. Usually, when I set up client VPN, we use user-based authentication, not this mutual authentication. Mutual authentication requires that you have two certificates, like the one in this client VPN, and you also have the one that is from the user or for the user. And using user-based authentication allows you to use your AWS authentication that you've already set up. When you select like the federated authentication, you will not specify which server provider in your AWS environment or which setup you're going to be using for that. But we have to use mutual authentication because I haven't set up any federated authentication. So that's a requirement for us, and I will just have to create that also before we continue. Just a moment. Let's go back to the RSA and then we'll run the code again or we can just follow the instructions directly. So we're going back to create one more RSA certificate for the user, and then we'll use that for the client certificate ARN. So scrolling through this. Yeah, so it's here. I'm going to create this client certificate. No. Sorry. So this is the one for the user one. Yes, and we have it here. So we're going to upload that also. And then we'll get right back to our client VPN creation. So we're taking a detour to create this client certificate that we want to upload here. And we've created it, but I need to still upload it to ACM. So following the exact same settings that we used before, I'm going to upload this to ACM also. I won't be closing what we are working on. I'll leave it open here. We'll come back to it. So here I would be importing a certificate and pasting it. Yes. Okay. So I'll go to the home and is it RSA. We should have is RSA 3 here. PKI issued. Yes, so this is the one for the same way we copied everything before, same way we're copying it now. Certificate body, firstly, we're going for the private key, which you can find in private, and it's the user one that we're copying here. So I'm going to open it with text edit. I'm going to copy it. That's for the private key. And we need the certificate chain. So I'm going back. Then we should see that here, just here. Still the same certificate chain. So open that with text edit and I copy it. And that's all. So we have two certificates now. One is the AWS Client VPN Workshop and one is user1.aws Client VPN Workshop. I would repeat that if we are using the federated identity authentication, you wouldn't need to have this double certificate thing. But because of the setup for the workshop that we're using is using mutual authentication for this, then you need the second certificate. Okay, so we go back and we should be able to find I need to refresh this. I don't know why it's not user based. It's not showing here yet. I'll just refresh this page and then we'll do it together again. So client VPN, we're using this CIDR block range. We already went over that before. And the authentication information is the first one. We're picking the default AWS client VPN.com domain. When we select use mutual authentication, this one we're selecting would be the second one that has user one on it. Yeah, so we can continue. I think that would be all. Scrolling through. We're not setting up this. We want to enable split tunnel. So split tunnel can get complex if you don't configure your local area networks or whatever properly, your AWS environment. But what it does is it allows you to be able to resolve things like you don't have to connect and disconnect from your VPN to be able to resolve other things in your local ISP and whatnot. But just take note of it, like enabling split tunnel can really save you a lot of headaches and a lot of configurations that you will need to do to have some things working. So the VPC, I don't have a VPC here. Yes, we don't have a VPC, but we could create it. You want your client VPN to be connected to a VPC and the subnets and all that, and we are following the sub lab, that's the lab 3 that is creating the client VPN, but I guess it is part of the other labs that they have done to set up the VPC. So we are at a loss. Let me try and pull up one VPC quickly before we continue. So I'm just going to look at the architecture to see what VPC they have set up, and I would work with it like that. So we have here, let's look at it. They have a VPC with this and the subnets that we have. I'm just going to create this configuration and we would have that VPC to work with. We were overestimating them in helping us to prepare this. So what am I going to be deploying? Yeah, let me put it here. VPC. We need our VPC. So create VPC. I'm going to create VPC and more so that it sets up some other things that we need. And here we have the CIDR block is 10.0.0.0/16, correct. We have no IPv6 availability zones. We are using 2 availability zones. We don't want any public subnets. We want 4 private subnets. Yes, there's 2 for the databases and the 2 for the client VPN. And the CIDR blocks, I'm going to use the exact same ones that they have here, so we're just going to work with it. 10.0.2.0/24, and here we have 10.0.4.0/24. Here we have 10.0.7/0/24, and this one is 10.0.8.0/24. Okay, so these are the private subnets we're creating. We don't have any NAT gateway. We are not creating any VPC endpoint. We don't need it. Let's see what else. Yeah, that's all. I wish I could name the subnets here, but I can't name them, so just work with them like that. Yeah, our VPC is ready. So we have our VPC now, and this is what we have. 2 private subnets. I want to rename them. Haha. I'm going to rename them. Let's have a look at them. So I'm going to name them the exact same way these ones were named. The 10.0.4 is RDS subnet 2. Naming it RDS subnet 2. Okay. The 10.0.8.0 is client VPN subnet 2. Client VPN subnet 2. Save. 10.0.2, this one is the RDS subnet 1. And here we have our client VPN subnet 2. So, I mean, if you look at the architecture and you understand, what each symbol, what each thing means, it's easy for you to deploy whatever you are seeing in an AWS architecture diagram in your AWS environment, because you understand how these things work and where they should be created in the AWS environment. So yeah, now we have our VPC, we have the 4 subnets, and we can go ahead with our VPN creation. The only thing that we don't have yet is the RDS databases in the subnets, but we'll come back to deploy them before we have the need for them. So going back, oh my, I left us again. Before we were creating our client VPN and I closed it. Yes, we'll have to do it again, but that's not a problem. It's not very complicated. So we're going back again to our client VPN, create client VPN endpoints for the 3rd time. Client VPN, the CIDR block for our client is this one. Certificate, we selected it, we're using mutual authentication, we select the user, and we're not enabling any login or anything like that. DNS server 9. Normally you may want to configure some DNS servers and all, but we're not doing any of that. We have our split tunnel. We're going to be enabling that, yes, and we'll select our VPC. I think that's where we were at. Select the VPC. And I'm selecting security group. We're leaving everything as is. VPN pods the same way. You can change the amount of hours it takes for your VPN session to time out. It's for security purposes, like you want them to connect again every maybe 8 hours or something. And that's that. We're leaving everything else, and we create client VPN endpoint. So it's creating, I think, yeah. But when you create it, it wouldn't start working immediately. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's pending associate. So we need to associate it with the network that is going to be working with. These are the configurations that exist. DNS name. Yeah, these are the configurations that exist. So you need to set up the network that is going to be working with. You can set security groups, authorization rules, everything about it. So we need to associate target network. We selected subnet, so we're going to associate it with. This is our VPC, and we're going to associate it first with, let's say, oh, do you know, I named them the same thing. Client VPN subnet 2, client VPN subnet 2. I didn't do well. I need to rename that. I will rename it. So I will associate with one subnet first, then associate also with the second one. This one. Should have two. Yeah, it's associating right now. But while we're at it, let me go and rename that subnet. Where is it? The subnet. See, I put the same. This is supposed to be subnet 1. Pardon me. So yes, let's go back to see if it's done associating. We'll check on it again. But here we are in our workshop. This is the step where we associate the network. So when you associate the subnet with the client VPN, then you will be able to use it. You're able to connect to the VPN, and while you are connected, it works as if you are communicating with your AWS environment or with the VPC stuff, with the VPC resources from that subnet or from the subnets. So we go down. We already tried associating the target networks, and we would need to wait. Let's see when it's done associating. It's still associating. And until it is done associating, this would still not be available yet. It will still not be available until it's done associating. But this is a vital part of deploying your client VPN. You can have all the setup configuration and all that, but once you don't have any network association, it will not be available. It's going to be stuck in this pending associate state. So we wait. Security groups. Route table is creating the route table. I don't know why it's taking its time. Let's check the existing route tables. These are route tables for our subnets, the private ones we created. And then this is just this default public one. We don't need it for anything. Default security group. We have the network access control list for the 4 subnets. Okay. You're meant to be here. Our client VPN is still working. Okay. I wonder what is taking it so long. But when you set up your VPN, you would have to download this. We download the client configuration. Then when you install your VPN desktop application, you upload that configuration. So whenever we set this up for clients and we need to connect or whatever, like you log into the AWS account, download the configuration, and then you are able to use it with the client VPN from your local environment. But right now, even if we set that up, it's not going to work because the state of the VPN is not yet enabled. So we still wait. I could take a break now to get water and then I come back while it's done. So 5 minutes thereabouts, and we'll just check what is already set up, and we can download the client VPN, AWS client VPN, and install it, run the configuration, and see that it connects. I think that will be all. Just then, see you soon. Hi, so I'm back and our client VPN is available. The client VPN endpoint is available. We have our target network associations have been associated. The subnets have been associated, so our target network associations are all good to go, and we can now set that up. I have downloaded my client configuration. You should click to do that now if you haven't. You click and you have it on your system, then we can go. There was a note here actually that the process can take 10 to 15 minutes to complete. So we should have downloaded our client VPN while waiting. But we can still do it here. So AWS client VPN download. This is it. Make sure you are taking it from the official Amazon site. Don't go and download the virus on your system. I'm downloading the client VPN for macOS. You should select which one works for your system. Run it. It installs like every other software. Continue. Install. Okay. So in the workshop, apart from the AWS client VPN that they downloaded, they also downloaded MySQL Workbench, which is for connecting to the database. So normally for this particular situation, you have a database that you have deployed in your AWS environment. You want to connect with it from your system and run commands or fetch things or just basically connect to your database from your system. You don't want it to go through the public internet, and that is why we are trying to set up this client VPN. Normally when you run that, it's going to give you errors because your database is in a private subnet. It's not exposed. There's no way you should be able to reach it. But when you have your client VPN deployed and set up properly, configured, you launch it, you log in, you're authenticated in your on your system, and the connection to the AWS environment is established. When you run those commands or you use your database software that ordinarily should not work, it will work because it would be behaving as if you are operating from that subnet that we have associated with our client VPN. So it's going to be adding your requests through that tunnel, and then you are able to resolve like all the requests locally in your private subnet in AWS and all that. Like basically that's how it works in my head. Yeah. So we're going to be adding authorization rule for the VPC and all of that. The authorization rule is here on that VPN endpoint. You would see there's a tab. If you scroll down, besides this, you see the security group and then you see authorization rules. There's currently 0 authorization rules here. I'm going to add, and it's basically what restrictions that you are putting there to grant access to your environment. So let's see what rule that they want here. They said that we'll enter the VPC of the network we want to allow access. So we are using the CIDR block range of our VPC. That's the entire VPC. It's not only particular subnets. So we're going to put this here, the entire VPC. We want access to everyone, all users, access to the VPC entire network range, and we'll label it. You don't have to, it's optional label, but authorization for VPC site, and you add that. So anybody that's connected to this VPN now has access to the entire VPC block range. You can restrict it using your authorization rules. In this way, you can have different client VPN endpoints. So for different groups of people, maybe in your company, you want the developers to use a client VPN endpoint that grants them access to only the web subnets. You want the data team to have access to only the data subnets. You can specify which network range you want to grant access to from this thing. You can separate it at the level of the client VPN endpoints, like having separate client VPN endpoints, or you can separate it using specific groups of people. Like in this authorization rule, you're able to specify like, okay, this rule applies to users in a specific access group. It depends on your constraints and your requirements. So now we've added the authorization rule. We are going to be configuring our client VPN that we installed on our system. So you should already have downloaded your client configuration. If you haven't, it is on this page. On your VPN endpoint detail page, you click download client configuration, and you see a file downloaded on your system. The next thing would be for us to come in. I would also open this. Yeah, we have the keys here. I also would need to open the download, or I could just open it directly from here. So the file that we downloaded would need to be edited. It will be easy for you to edit, you see, because they label it properly. Yes, this is the client VPN configuration. Okay. So we have our client certificate and the client key for what we already created before. You find it in your easy RSA. And if you go back to the RSA part that we did, we created this documents. We'll just open it also because we're going to need to reference them. Easy RSA. It was the Easy RSA 3 PKI. So yes, in this PKI folder, you will see the issued is where our certificate is. Private is where the key is, the client key. But we can still continue for now. When we open the client VPN configuration file, as you can see, I have it open here. I don't know if you can see what is written here. But one thing to note is that the endpoint for our VPN is already inside that configuration file. Some other things here we may need to edit, yeah, but this already exists here, and don't try to change it because it's fixed with what you have set up in your VPN environment. So we open this and we're going to add the cert down here. I'm just going to put it here. You can see we have these tags that say the CA. We're going to add the ones for the cert. If you are not using mutual authentication, you wouldn't need to do this. I'm just noting that for you. You wouldn't need to do this. But since we're using mutual authentication, we have to edit this and configure this. So I'm going to go to the issued to get this cert that we used for the user, the client certificates. I'm going to add it here. Where is it? Text edit. Yeah, so you're only going to take the part that begins with certificates and end certificates. This, I think, yeah. Begin certificates. These are the important parts. Begin where these lines start. That's what we're going to take. So I'm putting this here. I'll also do the same for the key, the private key. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to private, and I'm going to take the key from this user. So that is text edit and this private key. So here I'm going to add a tag that says key, and we're going to add the certificate there, and that is what we need from this. So yeah, they're showing us what it should look like: the client certificates and the client private key, and then you save it. I have that saved and I close it. Now we would be able to upload this in our client VPN application, and we can establish the VPN connection. So you have installed this client VPN application. If you haven't, the link is there. Apparently, I didn't know that, but I would be opening it on my system. Client, AWS VPN client. This is what it looks like. This logo. I don't know why mine is taking time. Nothing is connected yet. So you go to your what do you call this thing? Is it toolbar at the top of your screen? In file, you can manage profiles there. So we want to add a new profile. So I went up there, I clicked manage manage profiles, and then I can now add profile. So adding this profile, you name it what you want to name it. I'll just name this client VPN workshop. That's my preference. And I'm uploading this VPN file configuration that we edited just now. That's what I'm putting here, and I'll add the profile. Now, as you can see, there's a profile that's added here, and I can click done. So that's all you need to do. Now, anytime you want to connect to your VPN, you open this AWS VPN client. You might even have it in your toolbar up here if you have it, and connect. It should work. I'm connected to the VPN, as you can see. So once you have your configuration done properly, then everything would go smoothly. Now I have this VPN connection established, and if we wanted to test it, which we won't be doing because we're out of time, but if we wanted to test it, a very simple way to do that would be to launch a database in that database subnet that we created, the RDS one. You can easily launch an RDS database just for a short time and try to log into that database from your system. You can use any of your database applications that you have on your system or your command line to try and authenticate to that database. It should work with this configuration because you have your VPN connection established, and even though your RDS database is in a private subnet with no external connections, with your VPN set up, you should be able to run commands on your database and access it right from your system without logging into the console to try and do anything locally. So it's a way to connect to your protected resources in your AWS environment without having to always log into the data, log into your AWS environment and try to launch a server to log into something or somewhere, or forcing yourself to expose all your ports and open access to everyone just so that you can call your database. Instead, put in the effort to set up a client VPN, even if it's just for yourself. You don't have to set it up for a company or anything. You set it up just for yourself to have access to your resources securely, and then everything goes from there. And I would say again, just check the cost of running AWS Client VPN. It's provision per user, if I remember correctly, when we use federated identity. Provision per user also, and you are able to connect with the AWS Client VPN from anywhere. It doesn't have to be in your office or in your house. You can be in US and then you'll be in Thailand tomorrow, and next tomorrow you are in Switzerland, and you are still able to connect to your AWS environment securely. I hope you learned one or two things from this particular session. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a nice evening. Bye bye.